The next pick for September 1st is going to be the SMU at North Texas minus 4.5. This line is moving. I got locked in North Texas minus 3.5. I don't know, a couple days ago. I think it was Thursday, last Thursday or something. But the line's moved to 4.5, and that's fine. You still got still plenty of value there. It's anything under North Texas minus 7 is going to be a play, and your play is definitely going to be on North Texas. Looking at these two teams, Seth Luttrell, he's entering his third year. I love third-year head coaches. Why? Because their recruits are in, their system is fully in place, everything is aligned, and they can start to make plays. Right? Usually they have a high number of returning starters, and that's exactly the case here. They have 17 returning starters, and they returned Mason Fine at quarterback. Mason Fine set the world on fire last year. First team Conference USA, threw for 4,052 yards, 31 touchdown passes, and there's no reason why he can't do that again this year. Absolutely no reason why, especially against this SMU defense. SMU's defense was absolutely atrocious last year. They gave up 477 yards a game, and that's nothing new. If you look at going backwards, 477 last year, 453 in 2016. 502 in 2015, 499 in 2014. You have to go all the way back to 2012 before you find a year where SMU gave up less than 400 yards a season, or I mean a game on defense. That is a lot. That's a lot of yards. And with this offense that North Texas has, there's no way that they're not going to turn those yards into points. They're just SMU is not going to be able to stop them. And then if you look at offense, I mean, if you look at SMU, how are they going to answer? Offensive line, yeah, it's pretty sturdy there, but they only have 64 career starts returning there. That's not very much. I mean, it's better than none. Don't get me wrong, but still a little bit of inexperience happening there. They only have 14 returning starters. 6 of them are on offense. They are returning Hicks as the quarterback. They did play well last year with Hicks as the starting quarterback down the stretch, but that was also when they had wide receivers, that are now in the NFL. You have looking at a couple of draft picks off of the team from last year. So look, if you look at, they have departing this year our third team All-American Quinn, who was a 7th round draft choice of Washington, and 2-time first team All-American Sutton, who was a 2nd round pick by Denver. There is absolutely no way you can replace that production. You can't. Those guys, you're incapable of doing that. They're going to struggle. Who's going to make the plays for SMU? They're learning a new offense. So, Sonny Dykes, he didn't even call the plays. He didn't even bother calling the plays in the bowl game. He coached the team in the bowl game, but he gave it to the grad assistant to do. They got smoked. They only scored 10 points against Louisiana Tech. SMU, not expecting much out of them this year. Definitely not expecting anything out of them week 1. North Texas lights up the scoreboard, wins it big. Take them heavy. North Texas minus 4.5. The next game is placing the Max Best against one of the Big Ten West wannabe contenders. You got Northern Illinois plus 9.5 at Iowa, and obviously because I said plus 9.5, you can tell what side I'm going to be on in this one. And this comes down to a couple of factors for me. I was staying away from this game, but once I looked at it a little bit closer, there were some things that I liked. Northern Illinois has a lot of experience coming back. Their offensive line looks solid. They have 111 career starts returning. So, that's good stuff there. Iowa is dealing with suspensions. Offensive line, defensive line. They got some guys that were doing some naughty stuff, and they're not going to participate in this very first game. So, I mean, that's a blow to Iowa, especially since Iowa only has 43 career starts returning on their offensive line to begin with. To be missing somebody from that they were counting on is going to hurt them. So that's number one. Number 2 is Northern Illinois' defense. It's great. Last year they stepped up. They made a lot of improvements. The defensive coordinator is back, so they should continue that momentum. He's going, they're going to lead, continue more improvement. So last year they only allowed 22 points and 339 total yards, 120 rush. So they gave up 3 yards per carry and they only lost 3 backups from a defensive line that gave up those numbers. So they returned 8 of their top 10, 4 who made 10 plus starts, and led by the MAC Defensive Player of the Year. So obviously you have the MAC's best defensive line versus a question mark for Iowa. And I don't think Iowa's going to be able to beat Northern Illinois through the air. Northern Illinois, it's not like they're incapable in offense, and they do well. Especially if you look at their opening games. They played Iowa. They actually played Iowa at Iowa in 2013. Week 1, they were +3. They won the game, 30-27. At Northwestern, Week 2 in 2014, they were +6.5. They won the game, 23-15. 2015, UNLV, Week 1, 21.5 point favorite. They only won by 8. But then if you look at Week 3 at Ohio State, 34.5 point dog. They only lost by 7, 13-20. Last year, or 2016, at Wyoming, -9. They went into triple overtime and they lost by 6. Then they went to USF the next week. They got blown out. Obviously, that's a lot of travel. I think 2016 was a down year. They only went 5-7, so it's the outlier, right? Because if you look at their wins, 13 they had 12 wins, 14 they had 11 wins, 15 they had 8 wins. Last year they had 8 wins, and last year they opened on the road at Boston College with 3.5 point dog, and they only lost by 3. So they covered there, and then they went to Nebraska in week 3, and it was an 11.5 point dog. They won by 4. So Northern Illinois is not a stranger to these situations. Going on the road, playing against bigger opponents, and being an underdog is sometimes a double-digit underdog. This line did open at 13.5, so there's not a lot of value has been lost there. But there's still, that's fine. You can tell from the closing lines of the previous seasons that Northern Illinois can stick around and they can play in this game. And with that defense, I don't see why they can't. If the defense steps up and the defensive line plugs those holes and they shut down this Iowa run game, Northern Illinois will be in it till the end and have a chance to win. So take the max best and the points on the road at Iowa. Northern Illinois +9.5. Our next game is Auburn and Washington. Auburn is laying 2.5 points on the road. Oh, neutral site game. This is being played in Atlanta. I like both these teams. I'm not going to lie. Last year, Auburn was my darling team. I had a huge man crush on Jared Stidham coming in. I thought they were my pick to pull upset, long shot odds to pull upset and win the SEC. They had a chance, but they faded down the stretch. After that Alabama game, they just didn't have anything left in the tank to take on Georgia. So, little disheartening. And then, of course, they lost the bowl game to Central Florida. Washington, I'm a big fan of Washington. They took a step back last year. I'm a big fan of the quarterback, Jake Browning. Talk to my friends about Browning all the time. I replaced him with Jared Stidham last year. It makes sense. Browning had a down year last year. And they lost John Ross. It's hard when you lose a first-round draft pick to the NFL. A wide receiver, the guy that takes the top off the defense. It really impacted their offense. If you look at the 2016 stats versus the 2017 stats, the number of plays that they ran is they ran close to 100. They ran 100 less plays on offense in 2017 versus 2016, like 100 less plays. So they had 700 less yards of passing offense and 24 less touchdowns. But Browning's completion percentage went up 6 points from 63 to 66%. So that's pretty fantastic. You can't beat that. Now, if they had somebody that could take the top off the offense, that's a completely different story. This offense is wide open. If you look at 2016 when they had John Ross, 457 yards of offense a game, 41.8 total points a game. Obviously you can't. That's hard to sustain. They did come back last year, 36.2, 405 yards. It's still fantastic, but they didn't have the defense played well. They finished +13 turnover margin last year. They didn't have far that they needed to go, and they played a lot of more underneath stuff, and they ran the ball a lot or a bit more last year than the previous year. So. But I expect Washington to be able to come in and accelerate that offense a little bit more. Take advantage. The offensive line, I mean, they lost one starter to the offensive line. Adams was hurt last year. He's their stud left tackle. He got injured last year. He missed half of the season. The offense struggled without him there. He's back to bookend. I mean, they have, when we're looking at comparing experience, looking at experience here, we have Washington has 17 returning starters. Obviously, Browning, he's a senior this year. He's a fourth-year starter in this offense. I mean, that's nothing to laugh at. Chris Peterson, he does a good job of producing quarterbacks, bringing them along. He has solid offenses every year, what he did at Boise State and what he's been doing here at Washington. The offensive line is 97 career starts returning. That's fantastic. They shouldn't have any problems running the ball. They got some athletes at, running back Myles Gaskin. Do I need to say any more? No, I don't. You look at Auburn. Auburn, they're going to take a step back this year. It just last year was their year to try to get it. Gus Malzahn got his big contract extension. He's safe for a few more years. I think they take a step back this year. I mean, Jared Stidham, he's still going to put up massive numbers. Don't get me wrong there. But who's going to help him in the run game? They lost both their studs, Kerryon Johnson and Cam Petway. So who's really going to come around and help pick that up? They only have 40 offensive line career starts returning, so that's a question mark there. Really going to take a step back. The passing game should be up. If you look at, they have their top 5 backs from last year, and they have 7 very high talents on this team. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. Running back position, it's not like it's going to be in terrible hands. They have athletes or fantastic playmakers all up and down this whole entire roster. It's not like they're lacking for studs. It's just a matter of replacing a couple of 1,000-yard rushers. That's very difficult to do, and I think that's going to impact them. And I think Washington's going to come in. They're going to be prepared, and they're going to knock it out the park in this game. And I look for Washington to win, but I'm going to take the points anyway. Take Washington plus 2.5. If you can get a field goal, good for you. But Washington plus 2.5.